Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Today is a very special day, and I have ordained today as Chiefmas Eve. That means that it is the eve before the Chiefs season kicks off, which is tomorrow. And for those of you that have been questioning about the mini recliner, rest assured, the mini recliner is alive and well. You won't see it this week, though, because I will be joining our Director of Operations, Laura Wassinger, and her husband, Alan, and my good friends, Jen Davis and Dan Holt, tomorrow at the Chiefs game. So I won't be home tomorrow in the mini recliner, but the next week you will definitely see it. It's coming out of retirement, and I'm very excited about that. Today, I've got a lot to cover with you, and I'm really excited about this because having the ability to articulately say no is an integral part. It's an integral component of building a life of freedom. And today I've got some tools, I've got some insights, I've got some perspectives, some things that I want to share with you that can help you get better at saying no to the people, places, and things that just aren't quite right for you. And to start this, I wanted to just walk you through a very fundamental coaching exercise that I pulled out of the book, The One Thing. And many of you know this. I'm the coach, the head coach at Productive, The One Thing. And that book, out of all the books that I've ever read, is in the top 5 as far as ones that have had a practical impact on my philosophy around life. And that's a book that I find continues to become more relevant as we as a human species further our journey into this digital deluge, this technology that we live beside. And one of the sections in that book are the 4 thieves of productivity, the 4 thieves of productivity. And I'll give these to you. You can Google it too if you need to. Number 1 is the fear of chaos, fear of chaos. Number 2, inability to say no, inability to say no. Number 3, environment doesn't support the goals. Environment doesn't support the goals. And then number 4, poor health habits. Poor health habits. Now, I might not have gotten those in exact order, and you can probably guess which one today we're ultimately going to be talking about. But from the coaching exercise perspective, the way that I use this is I'll share with people what they are. Here are the 4 thieves of productivity. And I ask them a very simple question. Which one is robbing you most? Which one is robbing you most? And I've asked this enough that I can tell you that the answers are kind of all over the board, right? Different people have different responses to that. And yet the inability to say no, when someone chooses that, when someone selects that as the thief that is robbing them most, my response to that is always the same. And what I share with them is, and I want each and every one of you to get this, you don't struggle with saying no. What you struggle with is that you don't pay attention to what you are saying no to. So I'll say that again. You don't struggle with saying no. You struggle with paying attention to what you're saying no to. What do I mean by that? Well, I work in the world of real estate, right? Real estate, from an industry perspective, has a very retail side to it, meaning a lot of real estate agents work retail hours. They work nights and they work weekends. And sometimes you might have a buyer or somebody who's coming in from out of town and they want to look at that house on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And because their livelihood is on the line, a lot of realtors will pop out there and show that house. The rules around that have changed, by the way, if you aren't aware. There's this big thing that hit us starting August 17th. But they're saying yes to that buyer. But when I say you aren't paying attention to who you're saying no to or what you're saying no to, you're saying no to the people at home that would be enjoying that time if you were at home. And it gets really easy to start saying no, when you quit looking at your time as if it is this commodity to be traded to strangers, and you start valuing it through the lens of this is something that is sacred to myself and the people that really matter to me. And I don't mean that you never work late. You know, we all have that experience, especially if you're running a business. And yet, I want you to get really, really clear to the opportunity cost of every yes. So when I say yes to this, who or what am I saying no to? And, you know, that has been such a really easy filter through which I look at opportunities, because the first thing that I always think about is, how is this yes ultimately going to take away something from my kids, from my family, from my health? And I look at things through that lens. And if it's something that I feel like isn't really going to be helpful to the people who really matter, then it makes it really simple for me to say no. And I get requests for people to come speak here or do that. And most of that is a no, because it takes away from the people that really matter to me. And it's something that I really want you to take away from this, because in my freed life, you know, one of the three beliefs that were really clear that we as human beings must intentionally identify and install is the value system that you're going to live your life through. Your values are simply the principles or rules that you feel it is important to follow in life. And so everything that comes your way, I would encourage you to run it through the value system that you've identified. Does this help me in regards to my family? Does this help me in regards to my health? Does everybody understand what I mean? Let your value system be kind of the doorman of yeses and nos. And the other thing I want you to all understand is that as you become more and more successful in your life, regardless of whatever it is that you're pursuing, listen to what I'm about to say, because this is really important. You are going to disappoint people. There is no way that you're going to walk through this journey, especially as you become better and better and better at what you do, without disappointing people. You're going to let people down. There's no way around it. And the question is, are you disappointing the right people? Are you disappointing the people that need to be disappointed? And it kind of, you know, reminds me of a coaching call that I had one time. And it was one that changed my life. And I tell this story in my free life because I had a woman on the phone, and I'm condensing this story for time. And when I walked her through my all-time favorite coaching formula, which is performance equals potential minus interference, performance equals potential minus interference. When I walked her through that formula and asked her, what's the interference? What's getting in your way? Her response was time blocking. And I said, time blocking, you know, tell me what that means. And she said, managing my time. And I said, well, you don't really manage time. Time is going to pass regardless of your attempt to manage it. What you're talking about is self-management. Would you agree with that? It's managing yourself within the currency of time. And she says, yes, that's right. And I said, okay, well, why is that such a struggle for you? And she started walking me through how every time somebody wanted to look at a piece of real estate, she would pop out there, whether it was late at night, early in the morning, on a weekend. And she said, it's very disruptive to my routines. It's very disruptive to my family. And I said, well, it's interesting because it seems like what you have is what I would call the disease to please. And she said, well, I've never thought of it that way. And I said, well, you know, people pleasing is a disease. In fact, for today, everyone, I went and pulled the definition of people pleasing. And people pleasing, a people pleaser, I should say, is a person who has an emotional need to please others, often at the expense of his or her own needs or desires. It's a person who has an emotional need to please others, often at the expense of his or her own needs or desires. And I said, so it seems like you've got this disease to please. And she's like, yeah, I do. And I said, well, were you born with that? Or do you think you learned it? And she said, well, I don't think I was born that way. And rather than asking her, where do you think you learned that? I asked her, what was your earliest memory of practicing that? What was your earliest memory of practicing the disease to please? And for those of you who've heard this story, you know what happened next. The line went silent. I thought she hung up. And she said, well, I grew up with an alcoholic father who was both physically and emotionally, verbally abusive to my mother. And when he would come home each and every day, I would meet him at the door and I would do everything he asked me to do, because that served as a distraction from him going after my mom. And so when we talk about an emotional need, see, she as a little girl had an emotional need to be safe. And she met that need by reacting to an unpredictable adult in her environment. And see, here's the issue, and this is something that I'm working on right now. It's when the mask becomes the man. It's when the mask becomes the man. See, she repeated that behavior over time, so many times that it got automated and it dropped down into her subconscious mind. And now it's a part of her programming. She's doing it and she doesn't know she's doing it. And here she is. I think at this point, she was in her 40s when we had this conversation, 40 years old with the disease to please that was installed as a response to an unpredictable adult, unbeknownst to her. And when we talk about this in My Freed Life, a big section of that course is until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Do you see what I mean? Do you understand like what we mean when we're talking about that quote, the unconscious? Do you get it? And so it's directing her life and she doesn't know it. And so many of you, even Madison was saying this morning. She asked a really great question. I even wrote it down. It was so good. She said, who or what has programmed you to feel that you have to say yes to everything? Who or what has programmed you to feel that you have to say yes to everything? And in My Freed Life, the thing that we talk about, and this is a practical tool, something that I would encourage you all to put in your pocket and walk around the world with. And basically, it's a practice, and we call it observation and examination. So observing and examining, this is how you make the unconscious conscious. And the thing I'm encouraging you to observe is, what is this part of me that has such a hard time with saying no? And so that's what lends to examination. What would I have to believe in order to feel so compelled to say yes to this? So observe and examine, where did I get this? Where did I learn this behavior? And ultimately, when we're looking at these parts of you, what we want to understand, is this serving you? Is it making you stronger? Or is it sacrificing you, making you weaker? And so this art of saying no thing runs deep into our programming. And it's something that I would invite you, as I mentioned, to take with you throughout the week and get really clear about what is it in me that wants to say yes to things that I actually want to say no to. And there's some other practical tools that I wanted to give you on this. And, you know, one of them is a tool of reflection. For example, where am I getting buyer's remorse around my yeses? Where am I getting buyer's remorse around my yeses? Said another way, what am I saying yes to that is leading to regret? And there's a couple of like tactical things that we can do to make you better at getting to know. Number one, and Laura Hyatt said this morning, number one is understand that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify it to anyone. And if you feel the need to do that, that need is another thing I would invite you to put under the microscope of observation and examination. Why do I feel so compelled to justify myself to this person? But no is a complete sentence. Another thing is delay your yeses. I do this constantly, and it's great to have somebody that you can ultimately kind of, filter through. Like somebody asks me, can you do this like webinar for our team, or can you come here and do this thing? My response is always the same. I have to run this by Laura Wassinger. She is the one that does my calendar. And so that filter is the thing that keeps me in the moment from committing to something that I don't want to actually commit to. Now, another one, and we get caught up in hyperbolic discounting. Hyperbolic discounting simply means that we discount things that are out in the future. We discount the future versus instant gratification. And oftentimes, we say yes to something. Maybe it's something a person invites you to attend in like April of next year, and April is so far out that you're like, you know what, fine, that's great. I don't have to think about it right now. But you commit to this thing, and then April comes, and you're going, oh God, man, I really wish I hadn't committed to that. I don't want to go. Or there's something else that came up that you really wanted to attend, maybe a family function. I've done this when Zoe was in soccer, said yes to something that I couldn't uncommit to and missed the soccer game. And the way that you can really start to think about and filter those types of opportunities is simply by asking yourself, if this wasn't in April, if it was next week, would I still want to go? If it wasn't next week, if it was tomorrow, would I still want to go? And if the answer to that isn't hell yes, I'm not going to tell you that it needs to be a hell no, but I will tell you that it's something that you need to stop and really understand. What is the intention I have here? What is it that I'm ultimately after? And what I found when I started to really live the principle of no is that oftentimes the things I was saying yes to were rooted in people pleasing, not what I really wanted. And when you get unapologetic about this, you start to reserve the most sacred thing you have on this earth, which is your time. Time is the most sacred thing that you have. And so I want you to get really good. I want you to get really good at slowing down and delaying your yeses and filtering them through your values. And by the way, this morning I had somebody reach out to me and they said, hey, could you come lead our team retreat? Now this person really knows who I am, because what they put underneath that request was, you could bring your family. We'll put you up in this hotel room. You can bring them and do this, this, and this. So this person really must know something about me or done some homework, because they brought in, like, you can bring your family. They can do this, 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 and this. I'm wondering if they must have talked to my team or something. But right there is an opportunity that I'm probably going to do, because it allows me to take the people, the value system with me. So today, what I want you to do is strongly, strongly consider what you're saying yes to. What is the program that is getting you to say yes when you really want to say no? And what is behind your inability to say no? Do you pay attention to who or what you're saying no to? And get really, really good at this. Yesterday, I had a unique opportunity that showed up, and I said yes to it. It was something I had the opportunity to do and jumped on it. I got to go down to Austin yesterday, meet with Gary Keller, and it was amazing. And I was sitting there in his office, and right there on the coffee table in his office is the famous sign, which is, until my one thing is done, everything else is just a distraction. And what I want you to hear is that that is a form of no. I'm saying no to everything and yes to my one thing. And remember, you're going to disappoint people. Make sure you're disappointing the right people. So today's lesson is shorter than other Wellness Wednesdays. And yet this is something that if you nail it, it will give you back the thing that so many of us are hungry for, which is that white space time for you to be creative, for you to do what you're meant to do. And I trust that you are going to become masterful at the art of saying no. Next week, each and every one of you, just so you know, in the spirit of what we're talking about here today, we have a topic that, Madison and I were really talking about, what is it that keeps people from feeling like that sense of connectedness? What is it that keeps people from really wanting to have that white space? And so we came up with a really amazing topic, and it's called, let me share this with you, guilt-free pleasures. So next week, we want to talk to you about the little things in life that seem so insignificant, and in some cases seem like a waste of time, when in fact, they're the very things that you should be doing to recharge your soul. So make sure that you come back next week and join us for Wellness Wednesday. We'll be talking about guilt-free pleasures. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. And I can't wait to hear the stories of who and what you said no to so that you can say yes to you and your own vision. Live freed, everyone. Bye-bye.